Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today, Alan Jacobson, Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Alteryx. You know, Alan, some people say that federal data is difficult to find, hard to use, and must be managed in order to be useful at all. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to being able to do powerful analytics with data, and certainly the first step is the management of it, getting your hands on it, being able to find it. Data's exploding at an incredible rate. 2.5 billion gigabytes of data per day coming into existence. And so the ability to be able to wrangle that together, to be able to process it, is certainly one of the big challenges that any data scientist has or any really knowledge worker has.
Your company, Alteryx, is known for a self-service data analytics platform. So what does that mean for our listeners here?
So really, we're positioned to allow anybody to be able to solve data and analytics problems. And I really do mean anybody. I have a 11 and 13-year-old. They both use Alteryx not only to do their homework assignments, but to be able to answer questions that they have about the world. And so by having at your fingertips the power of the desktop computer today, which has become incredibly powerful, the data that's now available all over the world, and advanced analytic tools to be able to process the data, you can really do spectacular things.
Traditionally, you'd have to take and maybe prep the data, get it all together, and then cleanse it, and then maybe try to understand it. That may be 3 or 4 different tools. And so this is a platform that assembles these tools together?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we have found is that there have been many different point solutions that allow you to do pieces of the process. But every time you have to change from one tool to another tool, it becomes incredibly difficult. There's friction in the process. So what Alteryx enables you to do is ingest the data, prep it, blend it, wrangle it, be able to improve the data quality of it. And then once you have the data in a good state, be able to embark on your analytics, whether it be geospatial, advanced forecasting, machine learning, really end-to-end analytic solutions.
I think if you talk to federal CIOs, they would say that assembling the data is fine, but usually that won't accomplish any digital transformation, will it?
No, so there's a lot more to certainly gathering data together to get real transformation to happen. And there have been great examples in the federal government. Just recently, I was reading about a case study where the Department of Homeland Security and the Federal Emergency Management Agency have taken data after Irma and Katrina, basically right in the aftermaths of the event, blending data from a dozen different sources and doing geospatial analysis to really speed up the aid to hundreds of thousands of people. That's real transformation, not simply wrangling the data, but providing solutions, actionable insight that can be leveraged.
Today what people might do is use a spreadsheet, and there's some inherent limitations in spreadsheet, aren't there?
Absolutely. With the number of rows and the number of columns continuing to grow and typical data sets that people need to do analysis, you may be dealing with hundreds, if not thousands, of columns. And with a tool like Alteryx, we can really, as I like to say, eat those columns for lunch. And so at the end of the day, being able to handle 1 billion rows and being able to process it is probably not something you're going to be able to do with a typical spreadsheet sitting on the desktop of most federal employees. And that's where, again, tools like Alteryx come in.
I know there are engineers out there and architects and people with specific problems that may have to go out and go to YouTube and learn R or learn Python in order to solve the problem at work. And so what you're suggesting is that, no, maybe you can look at a platform that can assemble this or converge in one spot. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. And you mentioned 2 languages, the 2 most popular languages actually for data scientists, R and Python. And these languages now have hundreds of thousands of packages available with kind of pre-formed analytics that can be leveraged. And so Alteryx has both of those languages built into the platform. And whether you use it in a drag and drop way or you're capable of programming in those languages, you can leverage those hundreds of thousands of packages. That becomes really important.
I've taken a look at some little snippets of Python, and it's not something you approach willingly. It's very difficult and complex. And so what you're saying is you can enable people to take the power of R in a self-service platform.
Absolutely. So again, drag and drop friendly tools. So if you don't know those languages, you don't code in those languages, you could build a neural network as easy as dragging a tool from from our toolbar down to the canvas, answering a couple questions, and voila, your R model will be built. But again, if you need to code in those languages or have a desire to code, you have that ability to do that as well.
You've indicated that 40% of the Global 2000 are using your product. I would imagine that the problems in large organizations in Asia or in Europe aren't that different from large organizations here. So a lot of case studies must parallel with advantages you can bring to the federal government.
Yeah, absolutely. So we see that both in the business world and in the public sector. Many examples where businesses are taking advantage of our tool and of our platform. And to that end, we've built a community, hundreds of thousands of folks that are sharing their use cases, their best practices, and helping each other go on this journey.
You know, when I think of assembling data in the federal government, there may be 3 or 4 different connectors and pipelines here. And many times that can be fragmented, can't it? And so how does a solution like yours, attack this fragmented data problem?
Yeah, so certainly Alteryx allows you to take data that's in any format, really from any system, and be able to blend it together. And that's something that's not necessarily very easy to do in most tools. And it's certainly usually the start of the analytic process. Doing data science, there are many steps. And that first step of gathering data and wrangling it together typically is the longest step, sometimes taking upwards of 70 to 80% of the total amount of time to solve any given problem.
So the net result is one version of the truth on a platform where people can work independently or on teams.
Yeah, so one of the things, again, that differentiates Alteryx from what workers are probably using frequently today, a spreadsheet on a local computer, is that we have not only a desktop solution, but server solutions. And with our servers, we allow colleagues to be able to collaborate on their analytics, to be able to share them. So certainly being able to take fragmented data and blend it together is key in an analytic process.
My guest today is Alan Jacobson, Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Alteryx. I'm your moderator, John Gilroy, on the discussion, Emerging Trends in Federal Data Analytics, sponsored by Alteryx on Federal News Network.